Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Alexis Wiley, and I am with the mayor's office. Thank you so much. You're going to hear a lot of exciting things tonight, so I'm glad to see so many people here. I would first like to thank Father Calor for giving us this wonderful space, Christ the King Church. Thank you, Father. And now I would like to introduce Eva Garza de Walsh, and she is Vice Chair of the Board for the Public Lighting Authority.
Thank you, Alexis. Well, I'm so happy that you're all here considering the weather. My goodness, that just goes to show you how important lighting is to our community. Am I right? Am I right? Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. I also want to thank Councilman James Tate. I believe I just saw him. Oh, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to come into your district and talk to your community. We have, as Alexis mentioned, we have some very important news about lighting in the city of Detroit, a plan that the authority has been working on for a couple of years now. But it has been changed and it has been revised for the better by our wonderful mayor, and we're very excited about the changes in the plan. He's going to share that with you. We want to make sure that if you have any questions, we're here as the authority, as the board that oversees this major project in the city. We want to make sure that the citizens of Detroit have a voice. And so this is one of several meetings that we're going to be convening in our various communities throughout the city. So without any further ado, let me introduce our wonderful mayor, Mayor Mike Duggan.
Well, good evening. And I have a couple introductions to make. We have 5 new members of the Lighting Authority Board. They've been here for the last month. We have an authority that's driven by citizens who are activists, and they're putting in a huge amount of time in a short period of time. I just want to introduce one of the other board members, David Jones. David? And the reason there is a plan here, and you might have followed the history of this, Kevin Orr had intended to replace all of the Lighting Authority members on January 1st and put in 5 people that he picked. And I said, and they would be here for the next 4 years. And I said, why shouldn't they be picked by the mayor and the council? And he said, mayor and the council will never agree on anything. I said, give me till January 15th, because the board, the 5 members, are picked jointly by the mayor and the council, and they said, I'll give you till January 15th. Before I do that, one more board member just came in, Nicole Spiels. So we sat down with the council, and it didn't get a lot of publicity because we didn't fight, we didn't call each other names, and it wasn't in the paper. But the first week of January, the mayor and the council adopted this, and I'd like to ask to come up at this point my partner in this, your Councilman James Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, glad to be here. Glad we're actually talking about some good stuff once again in the city of Detroit. I'm not going to take any time, and part of my informal dress, I didn't expect to come up and speak. But I'm excited at the fact that we're now talking about this new and revised plan. There have been talk about it and with the director, and we just didn't have all the parties on the same page. But it's clear that we have a mayor now who's working with this council, with the community, to make sure that what happens this point forward, it's in the best interest of the people who live here. So wait until you see what you have here. You're going to, I guarantee you, it's going to be some of the same things that you all have been saying we needed to do to revamp this plan. So without further ado, I'll take my seat and enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here as well.
So tonight is being hosted by the Public Lighting Authority. They ultimately have the authority to adopt the plan. And we've got 2 demonstration areas. And tonight is a lighting meeting. It's not for questions or other things. But I'm going to deviate for just 1 minute to let you know that because of the amount of snow that we've gotten, we have brought out the contractors to plow the neighborhoods. And in the next 24 hours, your neighborhood streets will get plowed. All right? Now, when I got hit with the foot of snow my first week, I made the mistake of going on TV and saying we had plowed 100% of the streets. And I learned very quickly we had only plowed 97% of the streets because everybody on the other streets called. So this time, what we're going to do is when the contractors report that they have plowed the 1,800 miles of residential street, we're going to make the public announcement. We're going to put out the phone number of the ombudsperson's office. And if we somehow have missed your block, when you call that, we will send them right back out. And I'm going to avoid by mistake. I try to make a different mistake every time, but we're not going to repeat that one. But thank you for being here on this night. What we have, I'm going to show you tonight. This is just the way I'm always going to be, is I'm going to tell you what we're thinking. I'm going to tell you what the plan is. We're going to get your reaction to it, and we're going to listen and keep modifying as we go forward. We're going to make mistakes as we try to do things here, but at least we'll be honest about them. As you know, how many people here know the boundaries of the pilot area? Okay, so you know we've been in a pilot area. The Public Lighting Authority a year ago made a decision to have 2 pilot areas, and the one on this area is basically Fenkel to McNichols and is Southfield to the city's border at Redford. That's this area. And the idea was, and I think it was a sound idea, let's put the lights up in those areas, and another one on the east side that's basically over at Gratiot and 7 Mile, and see how they are before you go ahead and light 139 square miles of the city. And so there's good news and bad news. The good news is that you're getting the lights first. The only bad news is you're the guinea pigs. So if we make a mistake, it'll be made here first. But I think we've got it right. But at the end of this, we're going to ask for your reaction before we move on to the other 139 miles. So here's what we've got. You met 3 of the board members. Otis Jones, is Otis here yet? Otis is on his way. He must have taken a less direct route than I did because he was with me when I left, is the executive director. He's been doing an outstanding job. He's working really hard, so when he shows up, please give him a big hand. Okay, so here's what we got. In the city of Detroit today, we have 88,000 fixtures, a pole with a light fixture hanging off it. We got 88,000 of them, and about 44,000 work. And as you know, it's not the same ones every day that work, right? Sometimes they're on, sometimes they're off. If there's a pattern to it, it's hard to figure. But on a given day, about half the lights in this city are out. Here's what the 88,000 are made up of. In your neighborhoods, on your residential streets, are about 53,000 lights in the city today. In the alleys are about another 20,000 lights. And they were originally put there when the alleys, I mean, how many of you remember when the garbage used to get picked up in the alleys? Okay, when I was a kid, right? The garbage truck came down the alleys. It was a public right-of-way. Years ago, the alleys were, in theory, turned back to you, although a lot of people haven't moved their fence lines. But today, the alleys are technically your backyards, and so they hung 20,000 lights in the alleys, and then another 15,000 on the main roads, the thoroughfares, so the McNichols, the outer drives, the Grand Rivers, etc. That's what makes up the 88,000 lights in the city of Detroit today. And so the Public Lighting Authority, the 5 members who are here, here's how it got started. At the end of 2012, the legislature created the authority. The reason they did it was this. We needed to get $160 million to replace the lights. That was the number they used. To do that, you have to be able to borrow the money. The city of Detroit couldn't have borrowed a nickel, right, in 2012. It was before the bankruptcy. And so they created an authority, and the law that they passed took $12.5 million of utility tax revenue. That was money we were using to pay for police officers in this city. They took it from the fund paying the police, and they put it into the authority to replace the lights. Now, if it's done right, that's a good decision because lighting can prevent a lot of crime. So if it's done right, it makes a lot of sense. If it's done wrong, all they did was give us fewer police officers and no better lights. And so as I said to the lighting authority when the members agreed to serve, this is a huge public trust. They're taking public safety money, and they have to make sure that it is being used to the maximum benefit. And so that $12.5 million will allow us to borrow $160 million, and the City Council created the authority in February of 2013. So it's been a year now. And in the various fighting between the mayor and the council and the emergency manager, not much has been done in the last year on lighting. And so when I got in the week after I got elected, I sat down with Kevin Orr, and he said to me, I'm fed up with the lighting authority. He said, they aren't getting anything done, I'm going to replace them. And as I said to you, give the mayor and the council a chance to prove that we can behave professionally. And here's why, here's your boundary, as you can see. I mentioned it before, from Southfield to Telegraph and 5 Points, and then between Fenkel and McNichols. Here is the plan that the Lighting Authority adopted last year. And you can tell me as we talk about it, how many of you heard a presentation on the plan before? Okay, so a handful of you. Do they come out and do meetings like this? Okay, some people apparently were at a meeting. So here's what they did. They made a decision that on the light fixtures, we're going to continue to use the same sodium lights that we've used historically. So to the extent they have been in your neighborhood and they've replaced some lights on the street corners, which they've done, they took an old sodium light out and they put in a new sodium light. So one of the decisions they made was not to go to the modern LED lighting, but to put the same sodium lights in that we've had before. That was the first decision that they made. On the main roads, here's what they decided. They think 15,000 is the right amount of lights. And if you drive down the main roads, there's the right number of lights. The poles are spaced okay. The problem is they don't work. But the 15,000 number, in my mind, was exactly the right number. But here's what they said. They said 85% of Detroit's lights on the main roads are wired from overhead. So if you're like me, you weren't particularly observant. 2 months ago, I couldn't have told you this. But if you drive by today, you'll see that at most light poles in this city, almost all the ones in the neighborhoods, but most in the thoroughfares, there's a wire that runs over the top. They're lit. The power comes from overhead. A group on that lighting authority said we should bury these cables underground. And they were very strong for that, except we could have probably done about 10% of the city if we had buried the cables underground. But they thought aesthetically it looked better. And they adopted a plan that would have reduced the overhead wiring on lights on the main roads from 85% of the city to 73% of the city. And that cost $30 million. So this is what happens in a committee. You have a compromise. A couple people strong for burying it underground. Other people said no. So they said, well, let's go from 85 to 73. Now, I'd invite you when you leave here tonight, if you go down McNichols and look up, here's what you'll see on those wooden poles on McNichols. That up on the top of those poles are your telephone wires, your power lines that run the power to your house, your cable lines, Comcast lines up there, and the power to the light poles. My question is, if you take the one wire that's powering the lights and you put it underground, how much have you helped yourself aesthetically? Was that worth $30 million? That was the decision that they made. If we had $1 billion extra, I think burying all those wires underground would be aesthetically a good thing to do. Of course, if they break, you got to dig them up, and it's very difficult to find where the break is, so it's not like there's a huge advantage. That's what the board decided in 2013. And because they spent that $30 million on the underground wiring, all right, here's what was done on the alleys. Okay, and again, I'm going to say to you, I'm not saying we don't want lights in the back. The alleys are technically today your backyard. What they decided was there are 20,000 alley lights. Today, 12,000 of those lights work. In 2013, the board said, take them all down. All 20,000, even the working lights. Take them all down. And if you want to have your own lights, they didn't really offer an option. And so we can't pay for alley lights in the long run. My question was, do we really want to take down 12,000 working lights? And it's something we're going to talk about tonight. On the neighborhood, I am going to say this over and over. You know what my goal is. We are going to get the population of the city of Detroit growing again. And that means that we can't continue to have the situation where people move into downtown and midtown and the riverfront, but they move out of the neighborhoods faster than they move in. The only way the population of the city grows again is when people want to move into our neighborhoods, not move out. And so everything I was focused on in looking at this is the neighborhood lighting. But here's what the proposal they adopted last year did. It cut the lights in the neighborhood from 53,000 to 30,000. They had to do that because they spent $30 million to bury the wires on the main roads. And so they didn't have the money to light the neighborhoods. And we're going to talk about whether they made the right choices or we're making different choices now. So here's what they did. For any block that's 600 feet or less, and that's the great majority of you here. So if you think about if you have a 50-foot or 60-foot lot, 10, 12 houses a block. So a pretty average block in the city of Detroit. If that happened, you got no light in the middle of your block. And that's what you've been seeing. As they've gone and replaced lights, you were going to have lights at the corners, but no light in the middle of the block. So imagine if you got 10 or 12 houses in a block and no light in the middle. And that's what they had to do to save the $30 million. And here's what they were about to do, and poor Otis was about to be sent out to do it. If the light in the middle of your block is working, they voted to go take it down. Now, how would you have reacted when Otis and his team came down and took the working lights out of those of you who have in the middle of the block, right? People, I think, would have been a little upset. But that's what they needed to make the $30 million. And there is a standard called the Illuminating Engineering Society National Standard. So when I came in, the first question I asked DTE and the group that was there is the lighting, just lighting the corners of these long blocks, does that meet national standards? And they said, I don't know if it meets national standards, it makes our budget. I said, well, we're competing with other communities for neighbors. I mean, think about this. People are choosing to leave here to go to Ferndale, to go to Harper Woods, et cetera. If we are going to light our neighborhoods for the next generation to a level that's worse than our competitors, we are just doing one more thing to drive people out. And in fact, if you go to the Ferndale neighborhoods, you go to the Harper Woods neighborhoods, they're lit in the middle of the block. That's the national standard. But that was not the plan that was in place 4 weeks ago. So in the city of Detroit today, we have about 13,000 blocks. The national standard has to do with how high the light is, how bright it is, et cetera. But basically, for the lights we're proposing, it's about one light every 250 to 300 feet. That's roughly the standard. And so on the really short blocks in this town that are 300 feet or less, just having lights at the corner is fine. It met the national standard. What the old authority did on the really short blocks was okay. We have in this city 11,000 blocks between 300 and 600 feet. They would have been very dark in the middle of the block. Didn't meet the national standard, and in my mind, it was unacceptable. But under the plan adopted last year, all of those lights in the middle blocks would have been taken down. If you were over 600 feet, they were going to have lights. And so the 9,000 blocks in the city that are long blocks, they would have had lights. So basically, the people who would have been shortchanged are those of you in the middle-length blocks who would have been left in the dark unless you happen to live on the street corner. And so that gives you kind of a sense of what the city looks like. Decorative lighting. And I don't know if anybody's here from Rosedale, but we've got some other neighborhoods in this city. In fact, we've got a number of neighborhoods in this city that have decorative lighting. It's important for the character of their neighborhood. There was no option in the plan adopted last year for decorative lighting. You'd gotten the same light in every neighborhood on the corner. And so we needed to find a fair way to address it. They basically said everybody gets the same. I've got a different approach that we're going to talk about. And it was going to be 3 years. So it would have taken us 3 years. You would have been fine because you were first in line. But for the city, it would have taken 3 years to get through the neighborhoods. And again, I'm trying to keep people here. I didn't think 3 years was a reasonable timeline. So on December 31st, that was the plan that was in place under the old board. Here is the plan that your new board adopted on January 29th that Otis Jones is about to carry out in your neighborhood. On the lights, we are going, today we have 100% sodium. Last year's plan was 100% sodium. We are going to 100% LED lights in the city of Detroit. We are going to live with this decision for the next 10 or 20 years. The idea that we were going to go back through and put all old sodium lights when the rest of America is going to LED made no sense to me. And so we've switched it over. Otis has ordered the LED lights. They're on their way here, and you're going to get them first. Next. Okay, somebody's enthused about that. All right. The thoroughfares, the main roads. Now, we have to give something up. I don't have any more money. So we're going to make choices. And that's a tough thing that's going to be in this city, that we're going to have to make choices. Today, 85% of our main roads are wired from overhead. The 2013 plan, I told you, they were going to move 12% underground. I'm proposing today, and the Lighting Authority has adopted for your area, we're going to leave the lights that are lit overhead. The ones that are underground, lit underground. And that saves us $30 million to put into your neighborhood. Okay? So if you're aesthetically driven, you're going to be against this. If you think we ought to have LED, this is part of how we fund the LED, is by leaving the wires overhead. What are we going to do in the neighborhoods? Today, we've got 53,000 lights in the neighborhood, about half of them work. The plan that was adopted in 2013 had 30,000 lights and none under 600. What you're seeing today in the last plan, 2014, we're proposing putting 42,000 lights in the neighborhood, and every single block in this city between 300 and 600 feet will be lit not only on the corners, but it'll have an LED light in the middle of the block. Okay? Now we're going to make the national standards. I'm not going to tell you you're going to be able to read the newspaper at night, but we are going to be lit in these neighborhoods to the national standard. So if you're on a really short block, under 300 feet, you're lit at the two corners, that's fine. That makes the national standard. If you're 300 to 600 feet, you're now going to be lit in the middle of the block, and if you're over 600 feet, you're going to continue to be lit the way that you were before. And again, we pay for this, these 11,400 lights in these blocks, we pay for this by leaving the wires on the main roads overhead. So you can see the choices that I'm suggesting that we make. And on those 11,000 blocks are 125,000 homes. So all I can think about is what the people, those 125,000 homes, would have said to me when they saw Otis come down the street and take the working lights off the middle of their block. Okay? Okay. So Otis is the happiest man in the world right now. And so if you look at then the plan originally under 300 feet, the 2013 plan didn't have any in the middle block. We don't, because we don't need them under the national standards. 300 to 600 feet, they had none. We put 11,400, one in each block. And then in the rest of the city, on the street corners and on the 600-foot blocks, they had 30,000, we had 30,000, so you can see what the difference is. It's those of you in the middle-length blocks. The alleys, and if I had more money, the alley is where I would do something more, but we just can't afford to do it in this plan, because when I looked at the choices, the street in front of your house is public property. The alley, whether you feel like it or not, is technically your backyard. And so the priority in this plan is light the streets, but I didn't want to completely neglect the alleys, so here's what we're doing. Today we have 20,000 lights, 12,000 are working. The 2013 plan, they were going to come through and take all 20,000 down. We looked at this and said, if you got 12,000 that are still working, Why take them down? Okay? Let's leave them there. They're providing some light to the city. And so what we're going to do is we're going to leave those sodium lights in the alley in place as long as they're working. When they burn out, we're going to take the light fixtures down, but we're going to leave them for now. But we've also got Edison to arrange a deal, and you're going to have to do this with your neighbors if you want it. But if you want an alley light, whether you want it on your garage or you could have them hanging on the pole that's still going to be out there. If you want to get together with your neighbors behind you, on the side of you, whatever, for $100, Edison will come out and put the LED light there, and they'll charge you $17 a month. Whether you get together as a block club to do it, whether you get together with the neighbors behind you to do it, it'll light 6 or 8 houses around if you can figure out how to get together and share that. If you have a garage that you enter off the alley, you probably got a light hanging over your garage anyway, but if you don't, this is an option. So I wish we could do more in the alleys, but if we want to light the streets, this is the best that we're going to be able to do. So do you understand at least what we're thinking in the process? The decorative lights. This is an interesting question because a lot of neighborhoods in this town, the lights have the character. On the other hand, it's not fair to say to one neighborhood, you get a metal pole, and another neighborhood, you're going to get a more decorative pole and have everybody share it. And so the question is, how do we allow some neighborhoods to have decorative lights in a way that's fair? And here's what we're suggesting. We want to have an option for the neighborhoods. And so the basic pole that you see costs $800. And so it does not matter what neighborhood you're in, we're going to put in an $800 pole. But we are going to say to neighborhoods, if you want to get together and pay an extra $200 a pole, the neighborhood can pay that extra $200 difference, and we'll put in a nicer pole. So you can decide as a community. And so here are some drawings of some poles that you could have for $1,000. So we're going to let this be a neighborhood-by-neighborhood decision. We're not wedded only to these kinds of poles. We'll make a decision with the neighborhood. Neighborhood wants to put in $400 and get a really fancy one. It's okay with us. But if you're in a neighborhood that wants a decorative pole, the city is going to pay $800 just like they do for everybody else, and then you as neighbors can decide that you want to upgrade. Otherwise, we would have had to be putting fewer lights in the other neighborhoods in order to pay for your decorative poles. And I just didn't think that was fair. Okay, so everybody gets the same $800 a pole. Again, does that make sense to people? Does that seem fair? And so here's our timetable. And I'm going to stay with what I care about, which is the neighborhoods first. We have cut the schedule to get the lights in all neighborhoods by the end of next year. Every LED light will be up in every neighborhood street by the end of 2015. We took a full year off the cycle. We're going to bring in some people from out of town. We're going to put them on longer days. But I didn't think we should say to anybody in this town, you're waiting 3 years to get lights in your block. Okay? On the main thoroughfares, it's going to take us through the end of 16. I couldn't speed that up without costing a whole lot of money because even on the main thoroughfares, the big problem is the 15% that's still buried underground. I mean, it is a long, slow process to dig that up, put in the new circuitry, put it back. And so what we talked about with the lighting authority is if we can speed one thing up, what should it be? And we made a decision to speed up the lights on your residential block. So it's still going to anger me to drive down Grand River from time to time and see the lights out, but I want you to be able to walk on your block. I want you to be able to look out and see what's going on, and I just thought that was a higher priority. So the new plan that the Lighting Authority just adopted, 7 changes. They use 100% LED lighting. We added the 11,400 blocks, 400 mid-block lights. We leave the alley lights on until they burn out. We give you the option to get together with your neighbors on the alley lights if you want to put in your own. We give you an option to upgrade the decorative lights if you want to put in the extra $200. And we shorten your timeline to 2 years. And we pay for this by leaving the overhead wiring on the main roads at 85%. Those are the choices that we're recommending that we make here. And so what are you going to see in your neighborhood? By February 28th, by the end of this month, they are going to be starting to hang LED lights in your neighborhood. So Otis has ordered them. They're coming in when? Okay, so we expect them in 2 weeks. So before the end of February, people in this area are going to see crews out hanging the new lights. If they just hung a sodium light on your corner, we're going to leave that. We're not going to go back and take out the ones we just did in the last few weeks. We'll come back over time and replace them. But all the new lights are going to start being hung. By April 30th, your blocks will be done. Every light on your block will be done. And then by June 30th, the lights in this area on the thoroughfares will be done. So McNichols, Fenkel, Outer Drive, I guess we count 5 points, Burt Road maybe, whatever are defined as the thoroughfares, that's going to be done by June 30th. And so that's what you can expect. So when you see people in fixing the lights in your neighborhood, but you don't see them on Fenkel yet, it's just a decision we made to go with the residential blocks first. And I'm interested in your thoughts on that, your comments on that. And nothing says the lighting authority couldn't change their minds if there are strong feelings here, but I wanted to start with our thinking. So that's our plan. And with that, if it's okay, Madam Chair, we'll take questions. Go ahead. We'll start at the front and just keep working through.
Well, not so much.
Go ahead, Matt. We got a microphone for you here, so everybody can hear you.
Not so much a question, but an observation. LED lights draw considerably less power, but they throw less lumens. Is this new program going to be brighter, the same, or dimmer, if you will, than the old ones?
Okay, we're going to bring up our expert, Otis Jones.
Thank you for the question. Actually, what will happen is currently right now the high pressure sodium lights is about 75 watts. And so not only we're going to go LED, but we're going to double the wattage as well. And so that's going to address your concern to make sure that we've got a brighter light with more intensity. The wattage is going to be doubled, so it's going to be 150 watts. Okay?
We're going to get a chance to see before we go to the rest of the city, but we're hearing it's going to be good. Yes, ma'am. We'll just keep working right through. Go ahead.
You mentioned one of the ways that you're speeding up.
You know what? Can everybody start by introducing yourself and tell me
Sure.
what street you live on?
Sure. I'm Cheryl Simon. I live on Glastonbury in Rosedale Park. I'm wondering, you mentioned that in order to speed up the timeline for the residential neighborhoods, that you're going to be bringing in people from other places. I'm wondering what the opportunity will be for Detroiters for jobs on this very major project.
Well, I would. Good question. Good question. I will tell you that one of the things the mayor and I, and also the board, talked about is the importance of implementing what's called best values, which is we're required by the statute to make sure that we've got an actual plan for getting small businesses incorporated in our plan long term. We're cooperating now. The mayor just created a new division of neighborhoods, and then also Tom Wan, who's going to be hitting up some of the economic development practices for the city. We're going to be coordinating together to make sure we're pulling in the small businesses and meeting that practice. So our plan is to make sure that we're going to have throughout the year at least 3, if not 4, every quarter, small business meetings to ensure that we've got the type of inclusion that's required to pull people in. And the current, the way we do that now is in our current scoring, weighing system, okay, for RFPs. We say that if you are a business that's headquartered in Detroit, and that if you employ more than 30% of your employees live within the city, that when you respond to an RFP or a bid from the lighting authority, that you're going to automatically get 25% of the 100% scoring. So that puts people in a good position to ensure we've got the competition. But we're still going to work hard to make sure we do some capacity building, because a lot of that has to be done. So that's our plan in moving forward.
But these are licensed, trained union members who do this, and it's not the kind of thing that we can just hire people from the street. And our problem becomes this. The first time we get a storm here and a bunch of power lines go down, DTE takes all the same people and puts them to work on all the power lines. And so when you put in a project of this magnitude, you're drawing on a large number of, what do we call which classification?
They're three-class in IBE unit.
So
they're three-class.
Electrical workers, third-class electrical workers. And so here's our problem. If all we do is use the people we already have in town, every time DTE has an issue, we're going to end up doing the lights. And so we are absolutely going to hire everybody locally that we can, and we're going to do it to the local businesses. But if we don't supplement it from people coming from out of town, we're back on that 3-year timetable. And I just didn't think it was that we should wait that long. Let's keep going right in order here. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry. This guy already got the microphone away from you. Go ahead.
Thanks. My name is Oliver Cole. I'm the president of Grandmont 1, which is one of the 5 communities in the GRDC area. And I live on Piedmont Street. And it just happens that I have a burnout street light in front of my house, but we'll get to that later. Two things. First, a question. Was there any consideration given to solar power lights? And secondly, on the priority of placing lights, I'm a strong advocate for placing the lights first around the public schools and the school bus stops.
So let me take your first question first. Yes, we spent some time looking at solar. And, one of the things that's happening throughout the country, as you may be aware of, is that the solar industry is struggling. And so given that we were looking out 30-plus years, we wanted to make sure that whatever product we purchase, that long-term we'll be able to maintenance it in a way. And so there was a huge concern about whether the solar industry, after the stimulus and everything else that President Obama put out to help support the solar industry, would withstand the long-term issues that we had. So that was one. Secondly, your second question was about the schools. What we did when we looked at what areas we should start, because this is a huge problem, and the way you eat an elephant is a bite at a time. We looked at the school-age population of children, where the concentration of that is at. We also looked at the crime rate. We looked at the population trend as well. So we considered all those things when we started to concentrate on particular areas. But as we move along, we're going to be smart enough and nimble enough that as we see things, we'll be able to make some adjustment. It's important for you guys to keep engaged with us on that. Yeah.
That's a good suggestion. That's a good suggestion. We'll take a look at that. Yes.
This is about the alley lights, about the sodium lights you were talking about. You said that if it was a community, they would pay $100 for the pole and then $17 a month for the light. If you're going to be in on that, are you allowed to take your fuse out of the fuse box if you don't need that light, if you have one for your yard inside?
Sure.
Actually, ma'am, that issue there would be addressed directly with DTE. DTEs, one of the things we're doing is that we're taking the system that's currently on the city's lighting system, and without getting too much engineering speak, we're going to be replacing the circuitry system with the new circuitry system, and it'll be all going on DTE's service. So DTE, when their technical experts come out to talk to you, they're going to be looking at whether or not they need to deal with the fuse box and the like. But that's something that they would be dealing with on site, because everybody's house is a little different too.
All right. So Matt, would you get this resident's name and address, and let's get DTE to call her tomorrow and answer that question? Okay. DTE's been a great partner with us. So we'll get you an answer on that. Go ahead, wherever you want to start.
Hello, everyone. Virginia G for the Black News, which will be released next week. So check for it. It'll be on buses and stuff. It's for the people. My question is, I got two questions. Okay, one, will there be lighting on Outer Drive? I wasn't sure from that diagram how to wait.
Yes.
From Outer Drive, from Larser and Finkel to 96, because it's straight pitch black, like, no.
Right.
But so is that included in that? And secondly, for the decorative lights, over there at Larser and Grand River where they have the refer theater and poetry, like, they got a nice little thing going on. So I don't know if you were saying, like, will that continue as far, because it's already lit already, so will that continue or will that be
So
discontinued?
I'm going to start you with this. When I was trying to convince my wife to go along with this crazy idea that I would run for mayor, and she was a little skeptical, I took her to Livernois and Outer Drive, and I drove her that night from Livernois all the way to 96, and the entire route that night, not a single light on Outer Drive was lit. That was the point where she said, okay, you've convinced me we need a change. So the answer is we are really focused on, we got a lot of work to do on the Outer Drive wiring, but we are going to get Outer Drive lit. And the other question?
Your other question was, repeat it again?
It was for the decorative lights over there, because I wasn't sure how the way you were saying that, if you were talking about continuing on that, because they already have decorative lights over there at Larson and Grand River.
Yes,
Right
ma'am.
There's like a nice little poetic.
Yes, ma'am.
Building.
Yeah, those lights will continue being there.
Okay.
Yep.
Stand up, sir.
We're not going to.
Hello. My name is Dave Grunenbaum. We live on Warwick. I would just like you to know that a year and a half ago, we moved to the city from Waterford. We invested in a house in Rosedale Park.
That's great.
And I used to live in Brightmoor where the lights worked once in a while. This was a long time ago. I just want you to know how reassuring it is for us to hear that this is really going to happen.
All right, thank you.
Ma'am, would you like to stand? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Beverly Couchman. I live on Westbrook, and we are between Benkel and Outer Drive. What about all the housing on the south side? You know, you're going this way, but like between Benkel and, say, Schoolcraft.
So here's what's going to happen is somewhere around the middle of April, the lighting authority is going to come out. We're probably going to have another meeting to talk to you about what do you think. And they're going to make a decision. This plan sounds really good today. We want to see it on the street before we go every place else. As soon as we see it and say, okay, this is the right plan, then the lighting authority is going to lay out a plan between now and the end of 2015 to hit every other single part of the city. And so I can't tell you where it will be staged. We had a suggestion earlier about hitting schools early. That's all going to be part of a conversation, but it will be sometime after April is all I can tell you today. Go ahead. Who's got a mic? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Lisa Whiteberry, and I'm the president and the founder of the original Chatham's Friends Block Club. And unfortunately, I'm the only friend left. And right now on my block in my area, right around the Finkel area, west of Lasher, right before Telegraph, around Keeler, there are poles, light poles, or former poles with wires from DTE, cable, telephone company, everyone. And when you call one person, they pass the buck and tell you that those strings or ropes or cords or wires belong to another company, and you keep calling and calling. So I was wondering if there's a plan in place to remove these dead poles with all these, I'm talking about dozens and dozens of shoestring wires and cords everywhere in the alleyways from Detroit and the residents in my area. Is there a plan to remove these poles, these wires, and to hold someone accountable for this mess? You can't walk through whatever this area is now, the alleyway that belongs to us, but it's littered with all these wires that have fallen, and from these homes that are no longer in existence, just everywhere from blocks to blocks, because my home is maybe the only one standing still, so.
Ma'am, that's a good point. Actually, the poles are used by some of the cable companies and the like. One of the things we're going to be doing as a part of, the mayor mentioned earlier, we're going to keep things overhead that's overhead, and pretty much that's going to be in the neighborhoods. So when we go in and we install new equipment and the like, we're going to be going through and cleaning a lot of that up. But at the same time, if we have cable companies and the like that are there, they have a right to be on the pole, but we're going to be trying to manage the cleanup of that. Okay.
So what we are going to do is, we're going to go through on the dead fixtures in the alleys. We're going to take down our fixture, the light fixture, not the pole. The pole will stay. We're going to take the light fixture off. We're going to take any wires that were running to that light fixture off. If the power company, the cable company's got some other things, we'll make a phone call on that. But we will take down everything connected with the lights. Go ahead. You've been very patient.
Thank you. My name is Linda Jones, representing the Ardmore Finkel Block Club, and I was still kind of confused as to where the lighting is going to start, even with the diagram. I'm at the corner of Ardmore and Finkel.
It's going to start at the corner of Ardmore and Finkel. Right? It's going to be at Finkel and Ardmore, and it's going to go north.
Okay.
All right.
Very good. Also, if we have any questions or concerns beyond this meeting, do we contact Otis Jones?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Those of you who, I try to personally respond to my emails. So sometime, for me, it may take a while to get back with you because I get, literally thousands of emails sometime, right? But let me give you my email address and then also the phone number to our office. So my email address is ojones@pladetroit.org. And so if you send me an email, what I tell everybody, I'm eventually going to get there because I'm going through a long list. But also, too, call our office. And our number is 313 area code 324-8290.
And thank you.
It's ojones@pladetroit.org. Okay. 324-8290. All right.
So this is our first one. Tomorrow night, we are going to have a fact sheet we pass out to the residents that are going to have that on there. So thank you. Great point. We're learning as we go here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Christine Davis. I live on Rosemont, former president of, past president of North Rosedale Park, and I attended the first lighting meeting where they had this plan all designed. I'm very happy to see this one, but there was some progress made. Lights were being put up, and we just came home from vacation, and Southfield Service Drive is completely black, Southfield Outer Drive. So with the progress they've made, and the progress you're saying that's going to start in the neighborhoods first, which I'm very happy because I have a street light at the end of my driveway, is Southfield going to be repaired, or is that going to be left to the end when you get the major thoroughfares?
So you're raising a really good point. What Otis Jones and the Lighting Authority are doing is they're going through and replacing all the lights in the city over the next 2 years in the neighborhoods and 3 years. In the meantime, the city of Detroit Public Lighting Department is still repairing the old lights. So if you see a crew that's out there that's not in your pilot zone, it's the city of Detroit crews. They're going to keep repairing the old stuff until Otis comes through and puts in new stuff.
So we continue to call them when the lights go out?
Yes.
Okay.
If it's outside of your
last time.
Right. If it's outside of your boundary, and John's going to have a fact sheet for tomorrow night.
It's inside the boundary.
If it's inside the boundary, they won't fix it. If it's inside the boundary, they're waiting for Otis to get there.
Right. Correct. And Southfield, you're correct, where you're talking about the service drives.
Southfield and McNichols.
That is actually right there in this pilot area on this side of town. And as the mayor mentioned earlier, our goal is to have that portion of it completed.
In a couple of years.
Right. But again, that's a thoroughfare. So the focus is we're going to make sure the neighborhoods are lit first. So that was the trade-off.
Yeah, those were working originally, now they're not. And that was my only question, is so we have to wait for the thoroughfares.
Yeah, and if it has to do with somebody pulled the wire out, the lighting department will still come through and do that. If it's something that's a serious problem underground, then you're going to have to wait, probably in the May timeline before the lighting authority comes through and actually puts in a whole new system. Yeah, I'm just trying to be honest with you on what you can expect. Yes.
Hi, my name is Donald Hare. I live on Bentler. I'm here with my sister, Amitris here, that lives on Fielding. I apologize, I came in a little bit late, but you were explaining about the sodium lights being 75 watts and the LEDs being double the amount. I was concerned about whether it would use more electricity being doubled in watts. And I'd like to kind of chime in on the gentleman from Grandmont that about the solar lights and really asking if it's, do you guys think it's really worth really looking into something like that a little bit deeper, because the future is right around the block, you know, and to have the expense spared a little, you know, I think that'll be a good thing, you know. Thanks.
So, yep, so you're right, the LED light is going to be much brighter. However, the technology that comes in LEDs, you know, the good thing about it is a direct light, and they don't actually build those lights until there's engineering specs done to it. It's to guide the directness of the light. So what you end up doing, because it's more direct light, you have what engineers refer to as a spillover or wastage of light. That decreases, so you have more energy savings. So that's why it'll be brighter and it'll be more direct in terms of where it's going. So that's how we're going to get the energy savings. And we'll end up holistically, once the entire system installed, the city would save $2.5 million a year just in energy. Okay, so you know, one of the things we wanted to do is to make sure we're competitive for the future, and you know, that is a significant amount of savings. And so the LED is going to produce that. Generally, LEDs allow for you to save anywhere between 40 and 50%, depending on the width of the street, right? In terms of energy savings, and so that was a big one. And again, on your second note, it came down to you know, longevity with solar. There's a lot of research that's been done on the solar industry in terms of lighting, and you know, we're going to get an opportunity to do this, but it's really important that when we put something in, that we can actually have a company who can stand behind a warranty, and we have performance bonds and the like issued to ensure that if that company goes away for some reason, that we can be able to keep the lights going. And there's a huge question nationally, this is not Detroit here, this is nationally, about whether or not the solar industry is truly going to make it because of a lot of subsidy has dried up. So a lot of those pieces went into that decision and that research.
And so I'm far less knowledgeable than Otis Jones, but what I did when I came in was I had our engineers call the other major cities in the country. What's Boston doing? What's Chicago doing? What's Phoenix doing? What's Seattle doing? Overwhelmingly, the cutting-edge cities are going from sodium to LED. We couldn't find a significant city going to solar. Can you imagine the situation if we go to solar, it turns out it's cloudy over the winter and it doesn't light anymore, the company goes out of business and doesn't warranty it, et cetera. And so we made a decision to follow what is, I believe, the most advanced national trend right now, which is LED. Now, 10 years from now, might it become solar? Yes, but I really don't want Detroit to be the first to try it out.
Good evening. I'm Myron. Me and my mother, we've been on Westbrook for about 30 years. I'm on Pearson now, me and my wife and my daughter. Now, I understand that you want to protect your investment in terms of you didn't want to take a risk on solar and things like that. My question is, what type or how secure will the light poles be and what type of wiring are you using? The reason why I ask, we've seen in Brightmoor where they've tried to build up houses, and then if you guys have noticed that they can't leave the house unprotected for 15 minutes because they go in and they strip them. Yeah. So the thing is, have you had a discussion about scrappers? Because Brightmoor is hotbed for scrappers, and what plans do you have in place for that?
So you got the first question. The first question is if you're lit from overhead, your problem is much less significant than when it's under, but I can take you through neighborhoods in this town where you can see the wires hanging where they cut the overhead wires. Second, there is legislation in Lansing right now that I'm actively behind. And what the laws are saying, or what the bills are saying, is they're modeled after the state of Oregon. Oregon passed a law that said that no scrapyard can take scrap from somebody unless they pay them with a check and hold that check for 3 days before they send it. And so we need to get that bill through Lansing. It's stuck in committee now. I'm going to be engaged in it. Second, we are going to be aggressive in enforcing the law on the scrapyards. We can chase 2,000 scrappers around the city, or we can go after the 17 scrapyards that are here. And I don't want to say too much because we have some law enforcement issues going on now. When I was the prosecutor, though, to me, buying stolen property is a felony. It's a 10-year felony. But you can go farther than that. If you're using your business in a criminal activity, we can seize your business as a nuisance. When I was the prosecutor, I started forfeiture proceedings against some scrap yards that were buying stolen property. And they came in and said to me, "Why are you doing this to us? We're honest business people. We didn't know it was stolen." And I'd say to them, when a fella comes down the street with a shopping cart with aluminum siding inside, and he pushes it up to your scrapyard, you got pretty good reason to believe he didn't come about it by lawful means. And so we're going to go after these scrapyards hard, and that isn't Otis Jones' problem, that's my problem, and we'll be attacking it.
Hi, my name is Phil Travis. I'm here with my wife, Shauna, and we have just relocated to the wonderful city of Detroit from Toronto, Canada.
All right.
And we love it in a big way, even though most of our lights in Toronto did work. That's not to say everything about a city. But I'm also the producer of a major reality TV show called Destination Detroit. You're not supposed to know about that because it's not out yet. It's a major show, and it's about people that want to relocate, to move to Detroit from other parts of the country and even other parts of the world. And just a very brief comment, your project with the lights, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Jones, is going to make that work all the better for us.
Glad to hear it. The only thing that I would caution you is, I don't know about what your show was looking for, but if you were looking for the mayor to cause as much publicity as the mayor of Toronto, I'm trying not to do that. Yes. Yes.
Hi, Vincent T. Scott and Kentville. Just two quick questions. One, how long will it take you to ascertain and determine if this is a valid project or not?
You know, I think by mid-April, the lighting authority is going to have enough lights hung that they're going to be able to come around, talk to you, and make a judgment, and then we'll decide to roll it out to the rest of the city. Ava, does that sound about right?
Okay, and what criterion will you use to determine if it's valid or not?
Ava, you want to?
Well, we're definitely going to listen to what the community says. We're going to check to see that the lights are on, that we're off.
Okay.
We're going to make sure that they are working properly and that we're not getting too many complaints about the streets being lit appropriately in between the 300 or 600 size blocks.
Okay.
So those are some that we're going to be looking at. We have an engineer here.
Right.
Who will also be looking very closely.
Go ahead. Let me give you a microphone here.
Okay.
So what you have is 5 homeowners on this board who are longtime community residents who are talking. We have an engineer, a lawyer, a community leader, and we also have an accountant and a doctor. But we're going to let you hear from the engineer here.
From an engineering perspective, they started with a survey. They looked at what the conditions are now. They made a plan for what it should be, and then we'll come back and see if it is what it should be, and if what we believed it should be when we made the plan is right, then we're good. But usually, you're going to find as things are getting put in place, like with bus stops and with schools, there are going to be some adjustments. And sometimes those adjustments that you do when you're putting something in construction don't always meet the plan. So there will be things that won't be quite right at the end, and we'll have to make corrections for that. It always happens that way. But then we'll learn from that, and we'll be able to apply it in other places.
Okay, lastly, you referenced Boston and Phoenix as well as some other major metropolises. Will this plan put Detroit on par with these cities?
Yes.
Okay.
We will be meeting the national standards of the other cities in the country. I would never have brought you a plan that put Detroit behind the other major cities in the country. We're going to change the way we think about things around here.
All right, Mr. Mayor and board and everyone here, I'm Jesse Brown. I'm the owner of Detroit Holistic Center and Holistic Training Institute, located 1 block away here on Grand River. And I represent the Burt Trinity Block Club, or Business Block Club as we call it. Kind of a new movement in the city for businesses having block clubs as well that function like residences, the residential block clubs too. On Grand River, sometimes we have lights and sometimes we don't.
Right.
Okay. My business has been located here about 22 years out of 27 in business. And we're concerned about security, we're concerned about safety, we're concerned about, these things. So when do we find out what the rollout will be for lighting on Grand River? And what are the plans that you have for helping businesses and the business groups to improve security and safety, and et cetera, so we can foster and prosper in this challenged economy?
Yeah, to the extent Grand River passes through this district, it'll be done by the end of June. And we're going to come back, as I say, later in April, and we're going to end up with a rollout plan for the rest of the city. So I don't know what to tell you. I don't want to promise you something that I don't know the answer to. So we'll have a staged rollout plan that makes sense. And I'm guessing that it'll be, I don't know, May, would you guess? Something in that range. So you'll know, everybody will know where they stand on the city schedule, and then we'll make sure we have a schedule that we beat, not a schedule that we miss. We're not going to be doing that. Yes.
My name is Charlotte Patnode. I live on Piedmont in Rosedale Park. Unfortunately, a block and a half south of Fenkell, so you just missed us with the test area. Yeah. Same thing happened when they did the recycling bins. We watched the people across Fenkell get them. I don't know. I think we live in the wrong place. A comment on...
We're going to get to you.
A comment on the solar is that we have so many trees. We're a neighborhood of trees, and solar is affected by that, and we're certainly not going to cut down the trees so that we can power the lights. And the other thing is the number of cloudy days. That's why we've never had a lot of solar stuff going on in the city. But my question is, just before I left the house, I was watching the news and saw a feature on Mr. Pulte and his efforts to clear all the land in Brightmoor. Now, he's talking that when he gets these 67 structures down, there'll be a 14-block area that's clear. Because I don't think it's ever been decided if we're going to start trying to do urban farming or tree nurseries or how this land is going to be used, parkland or whatever. Are you going to go ahead and put streetlights on the standard blocks that will exist? Or do you wait and see what kind of land use we're
going to use our judgment. Blocks that have no houses, we're not putting up lights,
okay.
Period. If the block's got 2 or 3 houses left, we're going to put up a light unless there's something about the block that Mr. Jones believes it isn't worth it, and we're going to have a conversation. But if we got 2 or 3 families left, we're still going to put a light in that block. We think they deserve that too. Yes. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman.
I'm James Tate from Scarsdale. And it's interesting.
So how are you liking this plan so far?
I'm loving it.
Okay.
And I got a preview the other day, so that's great. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about. I know, Mr. Jones, you mentioned that he was a very happy man because at least one council member has been beating him up about 100% LEDs and shrinking that plan. So again, I think you guys really need to understand how important it is to have the right people in place. We've got an extremely credible, knowledgeable, energetic board here, and when you have the mayor who is backing this plan and backing this crew and help put together part of this team, you want to make sure you understand how tremendous this is, because we are now moving it forward. We're moving it forward. And my question is similar to what was mentioned here about the overhead lighting, the wiring. We do have an issue with forestry. And on many of the trees, we have a big challenge with that. I've been hit with that question. I haven't been able to answer that question, so maybe Mr. Jones or someone can answer that question today. How are we going to transform our forestry to help deal with that issue?
Well, we've got two things happening there. One, I think a young lady mentioned earlier that some of the lights right now are sort of blocked, and I think that's where your question is going at, from the trees of the light. So when we go in and install the new equipment, you know, what they do in cities around the country is they have a cycle where they're trimming trees to ensure that it's not damaging the infrastructure and the like. So we're going to go in when we first install it. We're going to do that. But then we're going to have a maintenance cycle where we go around, and what we say is that every light should get touched every 3 years. So we go around to make sure it's trimmed so that it doesn't interfere with the illumination spread. And we don't have a situation where we have, like today, where you've got some trees that's taking down wires and the like. So that will be a part of the general maintenance schedule as well.
But this is something, Councilman, that you're going to have to be important on, because what we have in this financing of the $12.5 million is going to put these lights in. But the long-term maintenance issue is going to have to come from the city general fund. And so I'm deeply engaged with Kevin Orr on this plan of adjustment, which is not going to be easy in this city. And so we're going to have to make a priority in our budgets going forward to make sure that the forestry, the tree removal is funded. And I'm not going to tell you that's going to be easy. It's something we're going to have to fight for. Who's got the microphone? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Diane Hanks. I live on Chatham, just south of 6, so I'm real happy to hear we're in this area. But I think consideration needs to be given to these vacant blocks, because dumping has been a real issue. And if they're unlit, that just leaves it wide open to dumpers. And number two, there is a lot of people that take the bus and have to walk down some of these vacant blocks. And it's very unsafe.
Yeah, we're going to use our judgment. We're not going to be able to afford to do everything. And if there are stretches of vacant blocks, if somebody shows us that it's on a school walking route or something, that'll be a different factor. But we got stretches of this city where you've just got vacant blocks for blocks at a time, and to just go plop up all new LED lights in those areas is just something that we can't afford to do. So we're going to use our judgment, and we're going to continue to listen to you. If we've skipped a block and you've got a reason that you think it should be there, we're going to listen. Go ahead. We got one in the middle here.
Thank you. My name is Susie Gronenboom. I live in Rosedale Park. In the spirit of communication, I was wondering if all the people on the board have Twitter accounts so I can start following you. And do you have a website with this information?
Go ahead.
Yes, our website is www.pladetroit.org. We're going to have this plan up on our website, and so that everyone can view it. Again, that's www.pladetroit.org.
And so the question is, Eva, do you have a Twitter account? Okay, but Nicole doesn't? David, you can't tell me. Are you the only guy here that tweets? All right. Okay. Okay, so David, if it's okay, we'll put your Twitter name up on the PLA website, so anybody who wants to follow your insight. But David is a criminal defense attorney, so some of his comments may not relate to lighting. But if you get in trouble, he's outstanding.
Well, I hear you saying that you're going to write all this down for the next group.
Yes.
Is there some way that you could deliver some of those to Christ the King so we could have a copy of it?
Yeah. John, can we do that? All right, we will get them out here, and we'll find a way to get them out to the neighborhood groups. That's a great suggestion. Let's keep going right down the row here. And we will absolutely put them on the website. It will absolutely be on the website we're learning a lot as we're having this meeting. Anybody have any other questions? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say I found you on Facebook. It was a great place. DPLA's got a Facebook page.
You got a Facebook page?
Yeah, we do. We do have a Facebook page. But what we're going to do, though, is we're going to go ahead and do the Twitter because there's a huge transformation from the Facebook to the Twitter is happening. And Bob Burke, who's back there, is our communications guy. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow up, as noted before, with some of the Q&A from this meeting and make sure that the communities have the new social media address and the like.
Anything else? All right, then I get to ask the last question. How many people here like this plan the way we presented it? All right. How many still have their doubts? If you do, you're too polite to raise your hand. One fella. Okay, we got a couple who are still skeptics. We're going to see if in the next couple months we can't win those skeptics over. Thank you all very much for being here.